So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here for what I believe is a very timely but also very important discussion, and it's about democratizing cybersecurity. And by that I mean making it available and effective for everyone, and not just those who can afford it. And let me start with a reality we often overlook. It's that many of today's cybersecurity threats, they don't target their victims head on, but they come through the back door, and the back door is very often the supply chain. Now, when we talk about supply chain, it's not necessarily like logistics and manufacturing that I'm talking about, but we're talking about that network of small and medium enterprises that serve as a backbone for most of us. And here in Europe, that's especially true, because most of our suppliers or our even IT partners are SMEs. And yet, these SMEs, so even though they are so important, they are often under-equipped with cybersecurity, well, to defend themselves. For instance, they lack the financial means, the expertise, and sometimes even the awareness, which we will talk about in the panel. Now, if we want to build that resilient digital economy that Luxembourg wants to implement, we need to start by lifting the cybersecurity posture of the entire supply chain, and that means of the smallest members as well. Of course, you probably know it's no longer just best practice, it's also kind of a legal requirement with NIS2, the NIS2 directive, which is currently being implemented in the European Union. And it makes it pretty clear. It says that cybersecurity is not only kind of expected to be implemented by the companies who follow under NIS, but also of their supply chain. And this will be, of course, a huge shift in responsibility, but also a huge challenge for all of us. And this is what we see, especially from the government, being a significant risk, because that compliance burden that we will put on SMEs might actually fire backwards, because the larger companies might choose to discard their suppliers because they are not compliant, and opt then rather for, let's say, larger players, maybe foreign players that are compliant. Okay. Now, as we face this challenge, then the question becomes, well, how do we stay ahead of these threats and protect, all of them, and also the vulnerable links in our supply chain, meaning the SMEs? And one answer lies probably also in threat intelligence. And for this, I'm honored to introduce someone who is at the forefront of this conversation. So our keynote speaker is an expert in threat intelligence for the private sector, for the public sector, and he helps organizations across the globe to better understand and also defend against their cyber risks. So please join me in welcoming Joon Kim from the company Naru Security from South Korea, who will take us deeper into the world of threat intelligence and its critical role in securing our digital future. Joon Kim, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, my name is Joon Kim. Today I'm going to present the cyber threat intelligence in action. In this presentation, actually I'm not going to define what the cyber threat intelligence is, but I would rather say how we can make use of this cyber intelligence to solve the real life problem. And so that I will actually use two specific examples. One is actually one of the largest incidents we recently experienced in Korea, against one of the largest network carrier in Korea. So I'm going to bring up the SKT Telecom case where I participate as a national incident investigator. And also, I would like to expand this presentation for the nation-state cyber adversaries like North Korea. So I will make this case to actually expand my presentation to cover how those cyber intelligence will be used in a global environment. Okay, as I have introduced, my name is Joon Kim. I'm working in this industry for 20 years. I'm working in the government and national intelligence, and also with the good companies and private sectors as well. Just let me introduce my my company, Luxembourg subsidiary of Naru Security. We name it as CyberXM. We named after a Latin phrase, Deus Ex Machina. It has actually two overlapping meanings. One, we can solve the complicated cybersecurity problem, and then we can also make use of the machine So we make use of the power of AI. We can solve this problem. That's actually what CyberXM stands for. Okay, this is my presentation for the related topic. So people say people only can learn from mistake. So then we can learn from our own mistake or someone else's mistake. So I'm here to say not South Korea cybersecurity experience is best or we are like better than any other one. Rather say we have made so many mistakes for last 20 years. We thought that was the best approaches, and usually it got circumvented by unexpected movement of cyber adversaries. So I would like to share this experience for you and the European continent so that you don't have to make the mistake over again. Okay, then I'm going to tell more about the specific problem. This is the incident we just have experienced in this time and moment. It's a still ongoing problem. This is one of the largest network carrier in Korea. And they have the more number of the subscribers than any other network carriers. But they recently have a big breach of their HSS system. And they got breached a lot of USIM data. And they are suffering great financial losses. And then the most striking thing that I've learned throughout the investigation of this organization, this problem was there for more than 3 years. And then you might all surprised how they cannot handle those problems in 3 years. But the fact is they actually knew about those malwares named the BFF door, which actually was using very specific skills to evade the defense system, but they were actually catching many of them. But the reason why is they are having this kind of problem is it's more like while they are winning the battle, they are losing the big war. Reason why is I'm going to give a more specific explanation in the next slide. There's an ironical saying, the harder you try, the worse you get. So what it means by it is the SK Telecom was trying hard. They have one of the best personnel in Korea. They are spending more money than any other organization. And nobody can actually blame them by having those kind of problems. Then why this problem happened in there? The reason why is because they compartmentalize the security domains as a role and responsibilities. And then they actually, the harder they are working, the center of gravity of their work actually widen the gap between the organizations. So the harder they try, the more the gap is showing there. And the attacker was interacting with those systems until they find the lost ground. Like the water flows to the lost ground, they were actually keep on interacting for 3 years. If it were the public open system, it's going to take them for say 3 days for the complete compromise. Because they have a very, very strong defense system, it takes the cyber adversaries for 3 years to find out where they actually can perfectly hide from traditional defense system. So what I wanted to bring up through this presentation is the hard working is not very important. You have to work smartly. Okay, then what is the limitation of the traditional security defense system? As you might all know, the system we are learning today is a lack of contextual awareness, which means they are very, very sensitive to the superficial technical-based signals, but they usually don't know what's going on in whole your corporate environment. And then that's the reason why having those kind of problem is, although the defense system is well-defined R&R, and they get fragmented and they don't know what's going on, what others are doing. Actually, it narrows the focus on isolated concerns. So which means, while you are, while your house is burning, you're probably concerning about the broken windows. So if you lose the whole, what's going on over whole your corporate environment, even no matter how hard you try, you probably cannot get even better. So in those environment, the attackers, they can find the unmonitored vulnerabilities. It's not like a systematic vulnerabilities, it's more like operational vulnerabilities. Once they get there, they perfectly disappear from the radar. They can do whatever they want to do. So once they get there, they are making very solid pass through the system. In this actually incident, they have 3 different systems all connected by, which actually are not supposed to connected, but connected by cyber adversaries. They have a core system, they have a management system, and they have a user networks. It's not supposed to be connected, but the attackers somehow get into the administration systems, and then they create the backdoor in a both way, and that's where everything actually, the disaster has started. Then what's the role of the cyber intelligence in the corporate network? Then first of all, the cybersecurity is the game of opponent. You can't play by yourself. No matter what you expect, you can't just expect what he's doing. So you need to know, you need to understand who is the cyber adversary, what kind of capabilities they have, and what kind of tactic they are using in someone else's environment. And secondly, you have to know the situational awareness. I'm not necessarily saying you have to tear apart all those what you are doing in a cyber security activities. You have to leave it intact. But on top of it, you have a cyber intelligence capabilities so that they can recognize what is the most significant problem you are fall into now. That's one of the role of the cyber security intelligence in corporate environment. So by doing that, you can maintain the corporate visibility over attackers' operations. Then now I'm going to expand this idea to the global networks, which actually have a lot of similarities. I will call this, it's a tragedy of commons in cyberspace. There's some space nobody takes care of. It's happening in the global network as well. So I'm going to bring up the case of North Korean hackers, because this is the one we are dealing with for last 10 years with the government organizations. And then this is something I can give you the presentation. Okay, then as Rome wasn't built in a day, their cyber capability wasn't built in a day. It took them like decade. In 2005 and 2008, it is the initial stages, and there was nothing happened. They were actually building their initial capabilities. And after 2008, they launched 2 biggest cyber attack against South Korea. One of the denial of service attack, I'm going to give more detail in next slide, and others is a system destruction attack. And they have all similarities like of some other attackers. And then right after 2015, it seems like all got disappeared. It seems like there was no problem in Korean network, but I call this as a harvesting stages. They are siphoning all very, very sensitive data to where they want to use. So I'm going to make it more specifically in next slide. And you know, like probably this scenario or this incident is not related to you, but if you see this slide, you see the connection between someone you are afraid of. And 2007, 2008, Russia launches the denial of service attack to the Estonia and Georgia. And 1 year after, North Korea actually learned from their tactics, and then they launched exactly same denial of service attack to South Korea. And 2012, in Russia launches against the Ukraine. They have a NotPetya attack. They caused a lot of damages. And then 1 year later, the North Korean hacker actually uses the same tactic, which is actually a supply chain attack. They replace the updation file with the malwares, and they destroy more than like 50,000 computers. But one thing you need to pay attention is they didn't actually take any advantages. They were just proud of what they were doing, but they were so happy. And in the meanwhile, they knew they can do something very important, I guess. And then after 2015, it's like China does. They are actually siphoning all the sensitive data from Korean networks. One of the examples that identified in 2016, they actually infiltrated one of the most secured network of the Korea, the military network. They exfiltrated the 300 gigabytes of compressed data from their networks. It's so more or less like you can see the library of Korea actually moved to the North Korea. This is what is happening here. Okay, then Let's say about the evolution of the global cyber attack infrastructures, because we are running out of time. I'm going to go very briefly. In the beginning, first case in the 2009, the North Korean, even though it's the first case, they were actually managing 500 IPs across the 60 countries. This was the first case, but now they are expanding these infrastructures all over the globe so that they can evade defense system and they can be very productive. One example is 2023. The Mandiant actually published the report that North Korea make use of the IPsec, VPN, for their attack infrastructures. But after they released the report, North Korea actually dismantled all their IPsec-based infrastructures, and they moved to the S3 VPN-based public VPN infrastructures. That's actually, they also learning from mistakes, and they are very keen to listen what we are doing, and then they continuously change to evade our defense system. And this is one of the examples. They make use of the Pakistan IP as an intermediary point. And then to finalize this presentation, I would rather say, what's the role of the cyber intelligence in the global networks? In a global networks, you can see the relatively same idea that I actually presented for the corporate environment. They understand the state-sponsored cyber adversaries, which means here you also have a tragedy of the cyber commons. Between nation and nation, between like organization, there's always point nobody take care of. Like North Korean hackers make use of the Luxembourg hosting company, G-Core, as their phishing stations. And it's not saying they are abusing, they are paying money, but they still make use of those global infrastructure for their operations. And also, you need to know that, like we do in a corporate environment, we have to achieve the global cyber situational awareness. This is something very hard to do because there's no entity actually oversee everything like corporate environment. But this is something at this time we need to pay attention to prevent such activities against your government and the other countries. And last one, and not the least one, is maintaining the global visibility of attack operations. North Korea, China, and Russia, they are actually having more than 1,000 people in each, like 10,000 people each, having these operations. Unless they have a solid infrastructure, they cannot perform this kind of activities. By tracing their activities and their infrastructures, you can get so much good ideas how you can defend forward. Okay, let me finish my presentation by saying the word from the Stephen Hawking. So intelligence is the ability to adopt change, and I think this is also working to the cybersecurity as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those great insights on threat intelligence. So it's clear that understanding and using threat intelligence will be one point that will be necessary in our journey, to securing SMEs. Now the question is, how exactly do we do that? Is that the only one? Is maybe something else different? And for that, I assembled a small panel with experts from the domain who will help us addressing this question. So please give a warm welcome to my panelists. So Cédric Bonhomme from CIRCL, Edith Magyarics from PwC, and Carmen Kieffer from Chambre des Métiers. Okay, so thank you very much for joining this panel. I have one question actually to address maybe to all of you. We are talking a lot about SMEs, and maybe some of our audience come from SMEs, but I guess most people don't really know what are the problems that SMEs struggle with. And maybe can you give a small kind of brief of what's the situation on the terrain? Maybe Carmen, you want to start?
Yes, I think there are three key factors that are the main vulnerabilities of SMEs. First of all, they don't really have cybersecurity knowledge within the company, so they often rely on external IT providers to do all the cybersecurity within the company. Second of all, the employees don't really feel responsible for the cybersecurity because there's often a belief that cyber attacks do not happen to myself, it always happens to others, but I would not fall into the trap. And last of all, I think also another problem is that the business owners are occupied with their daily business, and they first of all care about the daily business operations, and cybersecurity is only a second matter for them.
If I may add on to that, just to piggyback actually, because I definitely agree with what you just said. Most of the time, SMEs are really of small size, that's the purpose, and obviously they are multitasking. And then you try to find a bit the sheep with 5 legs, whereby someone needs to be the head of IT, and then the CEO needs to have some knowledge. You were referring to the NIS2 directive, whereby obviously those people also need to have cybersecurity expertise, and you try to have one person running with different heads. And at the end of the day, they have 24 hours, and they need to prioritize. And yes, as you just said, well, their first priority is to make sure that they bring money back into the company, that they sell, and if it's a shareholdership, obviously that they distribute dividends to the shareholders. So it's quite tricky in terms of perception, in terms of positioning.
Yes, I agree. So I'm working in a cybersecurity incident response team, and indeed we see that when companies call us and they ask for help, for example, after a ransomware attack, we see that there is a lack of employees and skills. So most of the time, for example, backups are missing because nobody is responsible or clearly responsible of doing backups, checking backups, managing. And we see that they are externalizing a lot of services, email services, backups as well, and they don't know how it's working. They don't know the details of the contract, they have no insurance, or they don't know how the insurance is exactly working. So yeah, it's what we notice most of the time from companies that call us. And it's not rare to see that some companies get a ransomware a couple of times, not only once, but even the second time when we get one. So yeah.
Maybe Joon, you want to add a bit from your experience?
Yeah, I think from my experience, one of the biggest thing of my concern of those environment is, before, like say 10 years ago, the system wasn't that secure, and then there are many hackers actually doing a lot of experimental hackings. But now, system gets so secure, if you actually break the Windows system, the recent one, you probably get over $1 million upfront. But those things are not happening these days, which means in today's environment, attackers are not easy to break the system. So 10 years ago, is many hackers actually aiming for small targets. It's actually changed to small entities having large resources, actually targeting many organizations. So which means no matter how good your people in this small size enterprise, they probably not enough, they don't have enough skills to deal with such a great power. So I think that's those like imbalance between attacker and defenders is one of the big reasons that we have experienced a lot of incidents in this kind of environment.
Yeah. Maybe one additional question to that is, what would then be needed, in fact, for SMEs? What would be kind of a rapid game changer in that respect?
I would just like to make one generic comment. The majority of the case, and we're just discussing that earlier on, people think that technology would be the answer, but technology cannot be an answer by its own. Technology would be an enabler. And the majority of the time, what's happening within those small companies is that because they don't have the time, because they are multitasking, they don't take the time of doing data mining and process mining. If you are not in control of your processes, then you cannot just elaborate or design a potential entry point and think about that potential entry point. The entry point can be whatever. I mean, it can be an external person, it can be an internal person, it can be an application thread, it can be a patch that has not been done properly. So you have a lot of entry points, but if you don't master your processes and your data and you don't know where it's hosted, then you have a lot of challenge. And if I may just piggyback to what Cédric said, backup is very nice. Obviously, you externalize your process and you are sure that you tick the box because you have backups. But how often do you test your backups?
Yeah, and
I think another important point is really to raise awareness within the companies, meaning that you organize regularly trainings to inform the employees about the cyber risk, and also to test the vulnerability and risks that you have within the company by doing pen tests or IT audits to really identify where are my weaknesses and how can I mitigate the risks.
I think awareness is as well important. What is very costly is certifications, trainings. It's really a cost. It depends of the skills of the employees. And nowadays, what we know is that we are relying on a huge stack of software. So most of the time, the attacks are coming from really well-known vulnerabilities, email server not up to date, things like that. So it's not difficult to secure things a little better. We know that there are vulnerabilities from months before, or even sometimes years, and it's not patched. People don't apply the updates, and then they get hacked. So it's not just an issue of money. It's, I guess, awareness and really making people understand that they must fix the software. That's why we are sometimes, we are at CIRCL calling SMEs, so we directly find the numbers of companies, we scan networks, and then we call the companies and we tell them to update their servers. We have detected, for example, that there is an issue in the old Apache PHP server, and we ask them to update, things like that. So, yeah.
Looks like, awareness, that's probably a good point. Now the thing is, raising awareness, it sounds good. It's like, okay, just raise awareness. It's a question of how do you do it?
Yeah.
Now, I might maybe, let's say, just as an option, now that we have NIS2, couldn't we just say that, large enterprises anyway require this, couldn't they then just raise the awareness within their suppliers? I mean, would that work? And if yes, how would you do it?
It depends.
Well,
it's difficult with big companies sometimes.
Yes.
But that would entail as well that those big suppliers and providers know exactly what their entire value chain is and who is the last provider in that entire value chain. And that's very often what is lacking as well. I think that when you take some examples of what's happening in terms of cybersecurity attacks, one of the things is that how do you know that something or provider that you have been using has not been contaminating others, or that if you have been really having an attack and be exposed to an attack, you did not also contaminate other people and your clients, etc. So how do you design your entire value chain, then who is responsible? That's also something that is very important.
Can I add something? As a person who fought in the front line for more than 20 years, I think we need short-term solutions as well. We can't just wait until everything gets okay, because they are not waiting us to be secure. So you can think about the changes of the global trend. The United States, they have a lot of SASE infrastructure actually introduced, which means they are actually breaking the balance between attacker and defenders. You can't just wait that everybody just somehow gets aware and then be secured all of a sudden. So what they are doing is they are creating a certain point. They can see everything, and then they can disseminate the information to the necessary people so that they can deal with the problem. As I mentioned in the previously, in my personal opinion, they just can't do it. You know, the way they break in, if they use the supply chain attack of one of the software you are using, there's no way for them to recognize that they also get compromised. So in my own belief, we should have some immediate measure to deal with those very, very sophisticated high energy attacks.
What would be such a measure, just so that we have an idea?
It should go very technical though. And,
I see.
in my case, we have some concrete example because we get calls quite often. It's a couple times per week, let's say, for ransomware attack. And the immediate, we have a series of advice that we give to people that have ransomware issues. Is, for example, never pay a ransomware, of course. If they have backups, the detection of the origin of the issue. If they know, generally it's by email that the ransomware came. And we try to help them to decrypt the data. It's very, very rare that we are able to decrypt data, but there is no ransomware initiative, if you know. It's a website where you can find almost all the versions of known ransomware, and if you can find procedures to encrypt the data. So, but it's very rare that we are able to decrypt data, sadly. So finally, we help really, it's the first help that we can do. It's just when they call us, and that is very difficult more than that. It was a couple of months ago, we got a call from a company, and they had zero backups, really nothing. It was my first time that I saw that. Most of the time they have backups, but backups are not tested, or backups are really old, like 6 months old, and it's useless. It depends on what you are doing. If it's client's contract, 6 months old, you can, but if it's really source code, what you're working on, 6 months, too old. So, but this company had just nothing. So they could just close the shop. And we were able to encrypt the data thanks to the no ransomware initiative, of course. Then you have insurances, but it's more expensive. And insurances, I know that, yes, they can help you, but it might be, I guess, expensive.
I would just like to add as well that you were just mentioning raising awareness. I think this is exactly what La Chambre des Métiers is doing with the SMEs, with the program that they have. So raising the awareness and going to see them, right?
Yeah, so we go in the companies basically to see with them what they already have in place, and then if they want to benefit, I think the government also has a really nice program at the moment where they can really get an IT audit for free, paid, and then afterwards when they want to implement solutions, it's financed by 70% by the government, and I think it's a really good way to go, because also if the companies would receive intel from bigger companies, they might always have the problem to identify the quality and also relevance of the information they have, because I already said before, and they don't have the internal IT knowledge within the company. And if you don't have basic knowledge of IT, how can you say, okay, the information I have is important for me, or how would you even treat the information within the company? It's, they will still have to call external IT providers to help them with the information they basically receive to work with it.
But if I may as well, I mean, raising awareness starts whenever someone enters a company. Because as you were mentioning before, people have the tendency to think that cybersecurity is only the matters of the IT department or of the CISO, and where at the end of the day is the responsibility of anyone who enters physically or logically into a company. So I think that part of the onboarding program or whatever company is creating, whether large or smaller entities, part of the onboarding program is that awareness that should be in there as well. I mean, we help the people understand and we tell them, okay, you need to use your badge to enter the company, but then they should also be reminded that phishing is there. They should also be reminded that there are different types of entry points, and this is the responsibility of any department, whether it's HR, who is welcoming those people, or whether it's the CEO or whoever, but it's really responsibility at every level.
Another idea I must just throw in is, I mean, when we speak about democratization, it has issues in many, let's say, aspects. We have seen already, be it awareness, whatever, but I mean, financial is also one problem, I guess. Now, one idea one could have is also one to say, yes, but for instance, the government could kind of buy one product and just give it to everyone else for free or for reduced price. Would that work, or do you think that's not a good idea?
This is the opposite of our mindset, actually. At Luxembourg House of Cybersecurity, so we are under the Ministry of Economy, And we think that we should not rely on a stack of proprietary software. I mean, most of the time nowadays it's just a black box. It's like a lot of AI models, black box. You don't know from where they come. If they are from another models, you don't know the data sets, things like that. And it's even dangerous. Since more than 15 years now, we are developing open source softwares, and we really want to share data, open data as well, and to work on open standards. This is very, very important to us, and I think it's part of the solution of democratization, cybersecurity. It's not just trainings, awareness, of course, because people are not aware of these issues, but we need to provide them solutions that are affordable. So I don't say always totally free, but you still have to pay the service most of the time, but the software can be free, or the data. And then you can base the service on an open source software, and yeah, really. It won't be a good idea to buy, I know there is a country, it's UAE, the government bought, I think, license of ChatGPT for every citizen. But yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. Why ChatGPT? In our office, for example, we bought GPUs, so we have now a couple of GPUs, and we use GPUs to run different models, so Olama, Quen, Rirun, and we even develop our own models. So we prefer than using ChatGPT, of course. And yes, it's not something that everybody can do. I know that we are a technical company, but we can provide small models, small services to help citizens to do different services. I think it's even better to use small models dedicated to a specific task than relying on LLM like ChatGPT. And it's more our way to go.
Thank you.
I would just like to ask you as well, do you really think that we could find one solution that would fit all the SMEs that you are also supporting today?
No, I don't really think it's a feasible idea, because first of all, it will be very difficult to find one solution that fits all the specifications and demands of different companies, because every company has a different IT infrastructure, different needs, and so it's always very difficult. And then again, there would also need to be somewhere behind the whole software to implement it properly within the companies, because as I said again, the knowledge is not within the companies, so they have to call again an external provider. I think it's very important to help them by giving them financial incentives or financial aids to implement solutions, but I think it's a better way to go with external providers who are specializing in the domain and really can suggest them a software that is really tailored to their needs.
If I may take the example, it's like you would be going on a racetrack with someone with a bicycle and the other one with a sports car, because you want to have exactly the same goal, i.e. protecting your company, but the size and the speed of progress of your company is completely different.
Maybe, Joon, can you maybe also, I mean, you have made quite some experience also in using this kind of same let's say, for instance, in South Korea, as far as I know, every citizen uses the same security software and that probably didn't work that much.
It's even worse than that. You know, that actually uses the passage to compromise every single person in Korea. That's actually the bad example of government regulations. But I think a bit differently. Like, I'm not saying that those regulations is needed, but we rather like separate just the benign, not very high level of attack can be handled by the local like organization. But what if there is an attack that way ahead of their skills? Then there is always question: how are you going to handle those problems? How long are you going to wait those people to be raised or to be aware, get to a certain point? I don't think in my experience people become expert in a day or two. So we need to seriously think about the reality, what we are facing now. Like someday in the future, everything will be good if we pay too much attention and like if we pay some money. But there is something that's happening now, So I don't know, it could be very drastic, but as a person who have seen those problems in every day, I think they kind of need some kind of measure to handle with those state-sponsored attacks. Even in Korea, like state-sponsored hackers actually siphoning all the data in all militaries and all the government sectors, and then go back to somewhere like North Korea, right? And then you can't just tell them that you have to secure your system so that they cannot take your materials. So there's always big question. It's very sensitive to say what to do in this environment. But in my personal opinion, we need to be very serious about this problem too. Like before we have such an enemy, we can just take our own pace. But now it's a game of opponent. Others one is they are holding a gun. But now you are holding like say arrows, and then it's like you say like sports car and then the bicycle. So we have to actually see the differences, and then we need to get very serious to solve this kind of problems.
Just a question that comes to my mind. So when we talk about cybersecurity threats, I mean, you mean like state actors, but what are the real threats that SMEs are dealing with nowadays? I mean, is it rather state-sponsored? Is it more like they don't have backups and someone mistakenly deletes?
From what we know, it's more like this, backups and multi-line attack. We have a lot of things like that, multi-line attack. I guess as well the states, but it depends of the region of the world, I guess. And we get attacks, of course, from other countries, India, America, China, it depends. But here, a lot of ransomware and multi-line services are really a lot of issues. Most of the time, the bank is able to block the transfer of money, so they are lucky. But sometimes there are millions of euros that they lost, so it can be huge money.
Yeah, I think the biggest threat for the companies nowadays is losing their data, because with increased digitalization, all the data is digital, and often they don't have backups, or they don't do them regularly enough. So I think that's the biggest risk for them, because if they don't know what company I already sent an invoice to, where am I in my finances, maybe they don't even have access to their bank account anymore. And I think that's the biggest risk they are running at the moment.
If I may, I think there's one dimension that we tend to forget because we speak about technology, and is the human dimension. Because at the end of the day, you can have the best system possible, but if you did not raise awareness, or you have an insider threat, and bear with me, because when you do your BCP testing and DR testing, etc., you most of the time test that there's an external entity or person who wants to attack you and not an internal intruder, which happens. This is one. And the second thing is that when we speak about raising awareness and also speaking about technology and what we implement, one dimension that we should not forget is that when there's a cyber attack, there's a human dimension. And it's how the people will react when it happens. And very often we don't really help them, we don't support them in preparing themselves if something happens, because on one side you said, well, if it never happened to me, I'm too small of a company, so why would someone attack me? Or on the other side, where I don't have enough interest, or people should not get really any money from me if they attack me. But actually we should not discount that. We should really also help people prepare themselves if something happens, on how they communicate internally. One for the management, how they communicate to their colleagues, how they communicate externally to clients, to service providers, to the police, to lawyers. And this is something that is very often not accounted for in the awareness session, and that should be the case. Because in addition to that, human beings are also one of the major entry points of cyber attacks.
I think that's a very valid point, and it's also a point that we at Chambre Métiers were working on. We prepared for the small and medium-sized companies, or basically all the companies we represent, an action plan, or basic structure of an action plan they can follow, how to react in case of a cyber attack, that they can also give to all their employees once they elaborated on it. Because I think you're correct, it's one of the biggest issues that people don't know how to react. Most people think, okay, I plug out the power supply and it won't spread, and that's most basic solution, but it's probably the one that most people think of because they don't know how to act differently.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So there's one topic we haven't quite addressed today, and it seems to me that one always needs to address these topics nowadays. Well, we have seen that cybersecurity is a matter of complexity, it's a matter of awareness. Nowadays everyone says AI is the solution. I suppose we all kind of disagree, but still there are some opportunities in that. So in what extent can AI help us in, bringing forward cybersecurity at SMEs in particular?
I think that, you have heard, you can go on all the booths and all the presentation, AI is definitely one of the topic. But as we said at the beginning of the discussion, if you don't know your data, if you don't know your process, then you can put whatever solution in place, it will potentially not be the one that would fit your needs. So you really need to make an analysis on what type of data you have, what you consume it for, what you can use it for, what are your processes, and then designing your end-to-end value chain really highlight where you have automation. And the AI is one of the answers. On the other side, if people think that they can pass by and not use AI, this is also an illusion, because it's either you take the train or you just stay on the train station, then the other people leave. So you need to obviously take that dimension into account. And there are different perspectives, but you really need to make sure that you first understand your process, your data, and how you can make sure that you best implement whatever AI solution or Gen AI solution that would require and meet your needs.
I can probably extend further. Like 100% agree with her. But the problem I see in the field is, like, for example, in Korea, we are actually encouraging people using AI in cybersecurity. It's like many years. And then one of the case was actually they train all those malicious code and catch it using AI, and it has a 99.999% of accuracy. When it goes to the field, it gets lower than 20%. Then the way cheaper solution should usually give the 80%. So which means, like, something you don't know, you can't train them. So you can't just like saying that it's like a genie, you actually ask him, he will give the solution. It's never gonna take place. So you have to teach him to solve the problem in a very specific way, really solve the problem, right? So we need to be very, very careful to use the AI as a tool. So I think we should address those points to evade a lot of mistakes that could arise from those, like, blind belief.
I think that we discussed about cybersecurity awareness. We can speak about AI awareness the same way, and both go together. I think that one of the things as well that we need to make sure is that we don't emphasize just on the risks of AI, but we also need to raise the awareness of the SMEs around AI and how it can best be used in protecting themselves, not opening other doors for attacks. So everything needs to be packaged together.
Yeah, I agree, yes. And one issue is that most of the time we are using just consuming AI finally software. And it's a lot of US-based companies, and we are sending a lot of data, our prompts, and most of the time we can do the job with traditional tools. In my company, for example, we are using AI. We won't use AI if we can do something with traditional tool. We are doing some experiments of AI, for example, detection of things in the pictures, analysis of text, really things like that, and to try. But yes, and it's important that we build, I think for me, more companies, startups here in Europe and in Luxembourg in AI, so that we can use our own models, and companies don't send always our data, because we are sending a lot of data to ChatGPT, and it's not, and we need more skills to do that again, because else it's the same issues that with all of our software. AI is running on a huge stack on open source software. It's the same issues as every time with email server, etc. It's finally just software. the issues are not that different, but we are losing more data. And there is, after, the issue of hallucinations from AI, and can you trust the output of a model? It depends. You always have to analyze it. You cannot say, I will give this task to a model and just use the output and it's fine, it works. We never trust it. There is a lot of errors, positive or negative. So, yeah, that's why.
You wanted to add something? You mentioned already that, well, AI is maybe not the ideal solution in cybersecurity. One could argue that it's better than nothing because right now there's nothing. You mentioned, Edith, that it's crucial to understand your processes and also know where your data is. Now, honestly, I don't know if an SME could do that. I don't know if you agree or not. The thing is, so as far as I'm aware, there is also one initiative which is called the Cybersecurity Data Space, where in fact it's not a single company who collects this data, but more, let's say, as a collective.
Yes.
So how exactly do you think would the cybersecurity data space help in well, developing maybe not AI tools, but other tools in becoming more secure?
Well, you know, the data space is as good as the data can be of quality. So with no disrespect to anyone, crap in, crap out. So it's about knowing what type of data you put in there, how you will consume that data, what you give back to the space, obviously, because once the data has been manufactured, you can feed it back to be at the disposal of other entities. And then ultimately, who is responsibility of the ultimate quality of the data that is consumed? And when you have sorted out all those questions, then I think that we'll have been a better space. But joke aside, I think that there are very simple things that can be done. That's what the Chambre des Métiers is doing, supporting really the companies in implementing what is best for them. I think that larger companies as well are there to support, making sure that there are small steps that can be taken. Like in every part of our lives, you can answer 80% of the needs with 20% of a solution, and not spending too much money, actually, but being pragmatic. And I think that the SME need to have people who support them who are pragmatic, but also sharing examples. So I really like the fact that Joon shared the example of what happens, because I strongly believe that when there's an attack somewhere, we need to share. It does not mean all the details, because there are confidential information, obviously, but to share to make sure that it does not happen to anyone else, and also share how you reacted, and it can benefit from other companies, what has been the behaviors, and then really making sure that the community is really sharing around the type of topic and not hiding. It's not a shame to have suffered an attack.
Yes, transparency is very important. And data, if it's, again, that's open standards. It's really, really important as well. If you don't have open standards, you will have, paywalls, and it won't help SMEs, for sure. So,
Yeah, like when it comes to quality of the AI, garbage in, garbage out. One of the big problem is quality of the AI actually depends on the quality of the data. If there is a bias, no matter how well you train it, it's gonna give the harmful result. So it's not a matter of right or wrong, right? So when it comes to you thinking about having data, then you have to remove the bias so that you don't have those alignment problems. Because you really want the problem what you have, right? You don't want him solve the problem from the he wants. That's something I wanted to add on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So we're almost at the end. I'd like to ask you one maybe personal question to you. So we have quite some people in the audience who may or may not be of an SME. Now I would address you the question, what would be the advice or kind of one single word that you would say to, let's say, anyone who has SMEs in their supply chain, what they could do to improve, like a small improvement that they could do that would help everyone in the chain?
Patch your software.
Yeah, I can maybe start. I think one advice I could give companies is to really document their internal processes. If you're part of the supply chain, you might already know some of the processes that you are dealing with, so you could maybe help them within those processes. And then afterwards is really about like raising awareness, maybe sharing with that you see, that you've seen with the dealings that you have with the companies, that you share those with them.
I think in the word supply chain, you have the word chain, and it's understanding that each of the people who are part of the supply chain have responsibilities.
Like, I also need to go to technical though. So if I ask me the solution, because I'm a practical person, so you need to think about the micro-segmentizations, because like if your network is complex and complicated, you can't find the problem. So if you make your network more like business oriented, then you can easily find the problem in your network.
Okay, thank you very much. So we in the government, we see cybersecurity as a serious challenge for SMEs in the coming years. And that's why we're also working to increase, we're trying to increase both the demand and the offer. So on the demand side, it's one thing that we introduced recently. It's the cybersecurity PME packages, where SMEs can, let's say, at least get the financial incentive. And we're also working closely with, for instance, the Chambre des Métiers and the House of Cybersecurity to help them on their way. Now, on the offer side, it's maybe something we haven't discussed so much now. It's a lot of innovation and development that we have. So there are a lot of tools in Luxembourg, like R&D funding that you can get. There's the European Cybersecurity Competence Center, the data space that we're talking about, and even, the AI factory in that sense. And the goal of all of this is, in the end, to develop these cybersecurity tools for SMEs, which are easy to use, who don't require the expertise and so on, and so that they could more easily adopt cybersecurity. So I invite all of you warmly to join these initiatives because, contribute to expertise, help shape us, this, as I say, safer digital future for us all. And I would like to finish with one sentence. It's securing SMEs secures us all, I guess. That's the headline of this panel. So thank you very much for being with me on this panel.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I hope you liked it. You wanted to add something? Okay. And I wish you all a pleasant afternoon. Thank you very much.